Jai Ma. So we continue with the series on Srimad Bhagavat Purana, and it's like all Puranas, it's a blend of the physical and the supraphysical, not of truth and imagination. That's a wrong understanding, because those who see only the physical plane don't quite understand many of the stories, and as we are seeing very clearly that the stories are very, very clearly not just symbols but realities of other worlds. For instance, the bull with one leg, obviously there is no such bull which exists in the physical world. But that's what dharma is in Kali Yuga. It's a bull with one leg. And the recovery starts from there. If you really look at it, first thing, it stands on the legs of truth. And then finally, that is the one which will recover all the other aspects. So, we see these stories have such deep symbol, and last time we had stopped with the story of Vidur and Uddhav. They meet together and they are exchanging notes because Shri Krishna has departed from the physical world. Again, not departed forever, there is nothing like that, but departed from the physical world, and both are speaking to each other. And the beauty is they are each sharing an aspect of Krishna. So that's how the whole picture of Krishna comes up in this. In the Mahabharata, Krishna is only aparime, beyond measure. So you cannot measure, and yet from each character something of Krishna is revealed, and that makes it very beautiful and amazing. So we have, between the two, there is a little bit of dialogue, exchange of notes, and Vidur describes who Krishna has been for him, and he speaks of that incident where Krishna comes to to Hastinapur in a last minute hope. I wouldn't even say hope. Hope is for everybody, but he knows what's going to happen. In the last minute effort or attempt to stave the war, so that the war doesn't take place. And Duryodhan calls him and invites him with all the beautiful pakwan, food to eat and gifts at his hand. And Shri Krishna refuses it. And he says very clearly that, why are you calling me? Are you really calling me, or are you calling me for some other purpose? And then he goes to Vidur's place, where his wife is so full of love and devotion. She doesn't know what she is feeding him. She gives, it is very well immortalized in one of the songs, that how he takes the sag offered by Vidur Patni and refuses the meva of Duryodhan. Now there is in this story, apart from the bhakti element, very beautifully, that there is a kind of bhakti which is like a garb, which is Duryodhana's bhakti. It's a show of bhakti. But behind this bhakti there is the urge to ask favors from God. And in the Gita we see it's described as an inferior form of bhakti. It is recognized as bhakti. After all, any which way human beings remember the divine, it's accepted. But there are two inferior forms of bhakti, among which there is artharthi. Artharthi is somebody who seeks help from the divine. So Duryodhana at that point of time is like that bhakta who wants victory, who wants the army, who wants various favors, and he knows that Krishna is in a position to grant certain things very materially. And hence he has invited Krishna and offered a lot of sweetmeats and other things for him. But Shri Krishna refuses. And on the other side, there is another kind of bhakti which is there in this whole episode. The bhakti of Vidur's wife. She is so much thrilled with Shri Krishna's presence that she forgets that she is not offering him banana, she is offering him the peel and throwing away the banana. That's how the whole story goes, and Shri Krishna is quietly smiling and eating it away, and that's how the bhakti of Vidur's wife is shown and contrasted with the bhakti, so-called bhakti, or the show of bhakti of Duryodhan, who goes to God. There are plenty of people like that who go to God to seek the favors from him. Whereas there are others who go to God to give themselves to him. And there is a world of difference. And both may be seen as if they are the same people. Because everybody is going to a temple or to a place revered or hallowed. But the divine sees the bhav inside. So he speaks about that. And then comes Uddhav's turn. So Uddhav has been the closest friend of Krishna. In fact, from the age of 5, they have known each other. So Uddhav knows everything about Krishna, and Uddhav is more oriented towards knowledge, and he describes his episode. And that episode is very, very touching, and the episode goes that when once Uddhav meets Krishna and says, everything is fine, but you also have the jnana and I also have the jnana. And he is a jnani, incidentally. So Shri Krishna acknowledges him as among his dearest ones. So he is not just an ordinary friend of Krishna. No friend of Krishna can be really ordinary in the true sense. But he says that why do you allow them to be mad after you? They love you like crazy, these gopis. Don't they understand that you are not just this body, you are that Ananda Vishal and all this. So he tries to talk to Shri Krishna and says, see, I have been trying to tell them, but maybe if you tell them you are a jnani, they will listen to you and understand. And when Uddhav goes and comes back, he is chastened by the gopis. And they have really realized the divine much, much deeper and vaster. And it reminds me of a line from Savitri where Savitri says to Yama, I know that knowledge is a vast embrace. Knowledge begins when you are able to see the one everywhere and in everything. Other than that, it's intellectual knowledge, exchanging notes is not knowledge. So that's where we see that Uddhav comes back chastened. And as he describes, he is full of tears because he is the last person in a way who bears the testimony of Shri Krishna's departure. Because Shri Krishna, when he is departing, Uddhav reaches there and Shri Krishna, he is very much overwhelmed. He cannot bear that separation. And Shri Krishna gives him a kind of wisdom which is not there in this, in the Bhagavat Purana, but is elsewhere. And it's called an Uddhav Gita. So that's a very wonderful scripture. It contains the essence of the Gita, but in a very personalized, in a very nice way, sweet way. It cuts off a lot of other aspects because Shri Krishna is in a hurry to depart, and he gives him the essence, the crux. If those who want to read the essence of what the Gita is trying to tell us, well, Uddhav Gita is there. So he tells him, and all his, that moha to the body, his physical departure, all that which was overtaking him, for a moment it is eased out and he goes to Badrikashram where he is advised to go. Now at that point he asks him, Vidur, he asks him that tell me about the truth of Shri Krishna. Because see, those who were in Mahabharata, they have seen him as a warrior, as a prince, as someone very royal, of royal lineage. He never took the kingdom himself, but yes, he was someone everybody revered. So he asks him the secret of Krishna. So he says, well, I am not the right person to give it, but there is a rishi called Maitreya. You have to meet him. He was also there when Shri Krishna had left the body, and he is the person who can give the secret. So there is a Maitreya rishi who is not the Maitreya of the Gargi Maitreya and Yajnavalkya Sambad. This is another Maitreya rishi. He is regarded as a Muni, but he is really very evolved, and it so happens in the Bhagavad you see such chance event that Maitreya rishi comes and the two meet together as if by Devi Prerna. It is not just an incident which is being described as if it's magic. It's like as if it has been preordained and divinely ordained, because those days I do believe that telephones have reduced many of our abilities to communicate telepathically. So there must have been a kind of communication, and these people, even now you can recover sometimes these kind of ways of communication, but that time it must have been much more frequent. So he comes and Vidur asks him to tell him about Krishna. And then what follows is one of the most beautiful chapters in the Bhagavat Purana. Very profound, it's deep, it's mystic, it's spiritual. So Maitreya starts him with the story of creation. You have the story of creation there, that how there was a time when you can't say what was. There was. He said there was someone or something. But then he couldn't say he is or he is not. You cannot say that either. And then he becomes aware. So consciousness is the one which wakes up. That's why in many of the literature you will see consciousness is regarded as the creatrix, the savior, the power. But he becomes conscious of whom? Of himself. And he is in delight of his own self. And then he seeks to know what is in him. He knows himself that he exists, but what is in him? In him there is universe of possibilities, infinite possibilities. And so there is a very long description. We are not, because we are focusing mainly on stories, but it's worth reading all the ways different things emerge out of this one being, and one of them we have already spoken of as the Virat Purusha, whose Yajna is described in the Vedas. So you see a lot of correspondence between the Vedas and the Bhagavat Purana. That's why the Bhagavat Purana is regarded as one of the authentic Puranas. Not all Puranas are regarded as authentic, though they are very good source material. But this is regarded as authentic, and by no lesser an authority than Sri Aurobindo and the mother, both of them. So it's something very special. So he described the story of creation when there is a state when you cannot say it is or it is not, and that's out of which the being emerges, and then out of being emerges, all this creation begins to emerge. So from that where there is neither Sat nor a Sat comes this. So he describes all that creation, and then ultimately after quite some time in the cosmic waters there is the description of what today we call as Vishnu, but in the originally in the Bhagavat, Vishnu name comes much later. So he is lying below, and he is there, and he is sometimes described as Sankarshan. So Sankarshan is another name for Balaram. He comes out of Seish. So he is lying coiled below as a presence in that state of inconscient depths, and he is the first avatar. That's how it is described. How did he go into enter into the inconscient? How inconscient has come into being is not described actually in the Bhagavad. Shobhita describes that in great detail. So out of that he emerges, and then there is a description of him on the Seshnag, and on the Seshnag coiled he is lying, as the famous story we know of Vishnu and his four arms. And this is how he describes the vision. Now, this vision has been actually spoken of by Sri Aurobindo as a vision which is actually true. He says that there is a dialogue between Sri Aurobindo and conversation between Sri Aurobindo and Sudhir Kumar Sarkar, who used to be very, it's documented in one of the places. And he says that you think all these are just images. They are not images, they are reality, they are truths. And he describes also in his Isha Upanishad commentary, they are not images. They are realities of other dimension which we regard as images. And what is that reality? That is reality of the divine being lying in the waters of the inconscient. And he is described as on the Sesh Shayya. As he emerges, he is on Sesh or Anantnag, that is basically time. One of the Kashmir places is known as Anantnag. So he is lying on the couch of time. He is hidden in the heart of time. He is the mover of time. And on one of the couches, or one of the hoods of this great serpent, there is earth. And as the time comes, earth changes, one serpent to other. At that time, the whole world goes into a catastrophic phase, and then it's rejuvenated. So all that is described very beautifully, and then little by little he is shown that great being who is lying on the serpent couch and on the cosmic waters. And even that time, even Lakshmi comes much later. Is described as the one who is lying, and each of his arms, of course, one of them is the mesh, which is later on known as Kaumudi, which is the divine mace, which destroys all that is evil. And then there is the conch shell of Vishnu Bhagavan is Panchajanya, which later on we see with Sri Krishna also coming. This is the whole story, we'll talk about it. And then there is the lotus in one of the arms, and in the fourth arm there is Sudarshan Chakra. So all of them are symbols very clearly. Mace is the power, which is the force, which is destroys all that is evil. And Sudarshan Chakra destroys all that is dark. It scatters away darkness. It brings out the light. So it's a dynamic light in motion. Shobhindo's description of what Sudarshan Chakra is, it's the dynamic light in motion. So it's when one sees that in vision, it's a symbol of that. The light has become active, dynamic, and is going to scatter away all that is dark, destroy all that stands in the way. And then there is, of course, the mace, the Sudarshan Chakra, and the lotus. And the lotus is the symbol of the consciousness which is opening toward the light. So there is the four arms of Lord Vishnu, which is described. I think there is one more. What is that?
Panchajanya.
Panchajanya. Panchajanya, yes, that's the name of the conch. So conch shell is the sign of the victory. So wherever the Lord is, there is victory. So He brings with Him victory. He brings within the force that destroys evil. He brings within the lotus, which is the opening of consciousness. So that's what the lotus symbolizes. And there is the Kamudi Gada, Sudarshan Chakra, Panchajanya and the lotus. So he describes that great being who is sleeping. Now that's the manifest form of that which is beyond manifestation. And out of him emerges from his navel. He looks himself. Now what is born is the gunas, the three gunas emerge. So the three gunas emerge, and out of which the rajogun, it wants to act, becomes active. So it emerges, he is sleeping in a sleep of sattva. And out of his navel we see the emergence of Lord Brahma. And when Brahma comes, he cannot see what is his origin. All that he sees is a lotus and tremendous light all around. So he wants to understand, who am I? His first question is, who am I? How am I going to be? He wants to understand his own origin. So he goes through the lotus down into the origin, but cannot find anything. Because he goes all around, but he cannot find anyone. Because it goes deep, deep, deep. So he comes back and he's wondering. And then, as the story unfolds, he sees the great being lying and he prays to him. Because he doesn't know what he is supposed to do. He gets the urge to create, but he doesn't know how to create. He knows that he is alone and he has to create. He feels in him the impulse. And that's the time when the Lord, who is now regarded as called as Narayana, because he is sleeping on the waters, also as Sri Hari. So Hari is another name. So Hari is somebody who takes into himself everything. So he becomes Hari, he becomes Narayana, he becomes Vasudev, because he is the indwelling universal. So these are the names. Krishna name is not yet there. So he is the one. Vishnu. Vishnu is vast, extended in the entire cosmic water. He is extending in the whole universe. So he is Vishnu. So he is sleeping on that couch and he explains certain things to Lord Brahma, and he tells him one thing, that do tapa. Actually he first doesn't know that he hears the sound of tapa, and he does tapa. Because he understands tapa is the first word that we can hear in the story of creation. Shobito speaks about the same thing, that the word tapa comes. Tapa is energizing. So you discover by energizing. You want to discover anything about why you are there, you have to engage in tapa. Tapa is concentrating all your energies onto that one point. So that's why he hears about tapa. So what does Brahma do? All these energies, conscious being, whatever he is aware of, he draws it into himself and starts doing tapa. And as the story goes, for 1,000 years he does tapa. And then he begins to create. Now when he creates, there is not one Brahma. There are several Brahmas. So there are several efforts in that creation. And there is one of the stories which has been, of course, like many stories, but this one is one of the most abused stories, I would say, because of obviously deliberate misuse or misunderstanding. Why? Because it has been spoken of by, people in the West may not understand, people in other cultures may not understand. But Ambedkar ji has spoken about this story, and so it must be mentioned. It's the story of Brahma ji getting, as it is described, infatuated by his own daughter. So as the story goes, that when Brahmaji, after the tapa thing, he is shown by Sri Hari, he meets him and explains to him, you have to create. So he starts creating. So as he begins to create, now different things emerge. That's described that's a whole detailed list. But one of them which emerges is Saraswati with on the lotus and with the veena. And he is infatuated he is attracted to her, he is infatuated by her. The word that is used in the scripture is Kamavasana. But we must understand, this is a description before the Maithuni Srishti has started. He just develops a deep attraction and longing. Now, if we have to decode it, very simple. The creator getting enamored of his own creation. Because Saraswati will then create with the Veena. See, it's her, she's the one who holds the secret. And he gets so much attracted and attached to her. In the process, as the story goes, he puts one face in one direction, then she goes in another direction. Clearly symbolic. So 4 heads come around. So you see what she is doing? She is actually creating. Very beautiful. This is the power which has come out, and he is chasing that power as she goes. This chasing the power as she goes is also described in the myth of creation in Manu Shatrupa. Shatrupa says, I am going to hide. Or Manu says, I am going to hide. And it is the other way. Shatrupa, she is the 100. So she wants to hide and Manu has to search. So she hides. She makes as many forms and he discovers her there. So he also goes and inhabits that form. So this is a story of creation, very clearly symbolic. There is not even a, whatever we call as the sexual process has not yet started. So Brahmaji gets infatuated as the story goes. He is drawn by her and wherever she goes, he follows her. Then what does she do? After the 4 quarters have been created, he is seeing in all the quarters. So there are the 4 quarters which are created. She goes up. When she goes up, Brahmaji puts a head above. Now that's when his children, Marich and all come, and they already certain beings have emerged. Saraswati is one of them. And they are known as children of Brahma, who have emerged from him. They are his mental children. By his thought they have emerged. Marich, one of them is Marich. So Marich tells him that, look here, Dad, you are getting too much infatuated. You have to do something. You are not supposed to do this. If you get so much attracted to your own creation. See, there are so many stories of getting infatuated by your own reflection. Narcissus and Voldemort. They are all clearly symbolic stories. So, you have to create. You have to keep that poise. This is a power which will create for you. Now, if you get completely attached to it, you won't be in a position to create. It's a secret for all creative artists, actually. Because the best creations are when you are most impersonal. And you just receive an inspiration and you are doing it. You are no more the doer. The moment you are attached to any creation, you become a doer. And that spoils. So basically, it's very, very clear story. Very simple. And I don't know why, these people, great people couldn't understand. It's so direct. It's obviously not, Brahmaji is not a physical being who is having a, running after a lady. So there is a description of Marich. And then Brahmaji feels very, as the story goes, he feels very bad about it. He says, yes, I should have done it. And he immediately dies. So he dies. Then another Brahmaji emerges. Now you see there are a number of Brahmas who come into existence. This we will see in the Bhagavat at other points also. So there is one Narayana who is sleeping. But Brahmas, many Brahmas emerge. Each one, he tries to make the creation. It's not what it should be because he has got attached, so he dies. He sort of goes back into himself. No, he must create it because the creating, that first impulse is so important. All the rest will depend on that. So he is again and again being commanded by the same Sri Hari that you have to create, how he has to create. So he tries, he gets attached to his own creation. No, you have to withdraw back. So he draws back, he dies, means that those Srishti goes away, he comes back again. And he creates again. This time he understands the difference. Now this is the difference between this Saraswati, her name is Saraswati, and the consort of Brahma, Saraswati. Saraswati is a consort of Brahma, comes later. And she is not emerging out of Brahma. This is a later story. But here the story is very simple. It's the creator getting attached to his own creation. And when he is attached to his creation, he starts pursuing wherever the creation is going. He is unable to take that poise, that part of the witness which is important for any deep creations. You have to be engaged in creation. Your power has to be in it. Yet you have to learn to step back and stand back. So that's where Brahmaji learns it. And as I said, this story is described in all kinds of ways. But this is a very simple story, direct story. And as we have seen, Bhagavat is full of these kind of stories which are very clearly symbols. And then later on, it's later on that he goes into a Maithuni Srishti that we have already spoken of. Maithuni Srishti comes later. So next time what does he do? He out of himself creates 2 beings. So he becomes Manu and Shatrupa. This is the next time when he comes. So he says, okay, that's not the way. So then Manu and Shatrupa come, the Maithuni Srishti begins. So Maithuni Srishti means they are attracted to each other and there is a sexual process and there is a progeny. So each of them that way is a progeny of Brahma. He is the great grandfather, Pitamaha. So out of him all the various progeny come and they are created. So though he is the creatrix, he is the Rajogun Sampan. His own origin is in Lord Vishnu. And Shiva, according to this Puran, comes later, because now when the creation is there, then you need the destroyer. He has to destroy and create a balance. So it's the most logical way, actually, out of the two Puran. This I'm not saying out of any bias, but even Sri Aurobindo says that Vishnu Puran and Bhagavat Puran is the most authentic, and Shiv Puran is not regarded as that authentic. It comes later on because one of the much later Puranas, because obviously worshippers of Shiva wants to show him. Now here also Shiva is a very prominent deity, but Shiva comes later because after the creation the destruction process has to begin, and that's when Shiva comes. So he is the preserver, out of whom Brahma emerges, who has to create. He is the balancing factor in the whole creation, and then comes Shiva, and then the whole creation starts by a kind of show. There is an imbalance and the urge to create balance. That's how creation proceeds, by disequilibrium and equilibrium, a process which exists till today. You want to create something new, create an imbalance. Nature works like that. And when this happens, otherwise people go into a comfort zone, when everything is very nice, but there is nothing new and greater which emerges. So whenever a new creation has to take place, there will be an imbalance of sort, and then there will be a new creation. So that's the process which is described beautifully. That's what is called a shobh. Shobh is when there is a disequilibrium within the gunas. And when that happens, creation begins. So Rajogun starts acting. So that is the story of Brahma getting into Saraswati and the moho, and then his moho gets delusion, or that attachment or that attraction is gone. Then he starts again with Manushatrupa, and the whole story goes. Meanwhile, there is another two very beautiful stories which come up, and that they are related to Krishna. When Uddhav and Maitreya, they are not Uddhav Maitreya, Vidur and Maitreya, they are exchanging notes with each other. Then he describes many of the exploits of Krishna also, but it's a very profound scripture. I don't want to touch it unless we read it step by step, every verse, because everything is very profound. So he's exchanging notes, and he describes the story of the one is of course the Krishna's, how he got the Panchajanya. That's one of the descriptions. And the other story he describes is about Banasur. That's another very, not Banasur, the story of spoken of as Banasur, but it's not really Banasur. His name in the Bhagavat comes as Bhaumasur. So that's a very interesting story. So the story goes, the two of the story goes, that one of them is about how Shri Krishna got the Panchajanya. Panchajanya is the conch shell which is with Vishnu, that is also called Panchajanya. And Shri Krishna's conch shell is also called as Panchajanya. So the story goes that he is studying in Sandipni's Rishi's ashram, which is there in Ujjain, wonderful place where you have both the Shaiva, the Shaktas, and Shri Krishna Leela. All these are there in Ujjain. Supposed to be the Mahakal Mandir, it's supposed to be the center of the universe, I suppose. So anyways, so the story is very beautiful that one day before their studies are going to finish, so they asked their guru that what is it that you want us to do as Guru Dakshina. This was the system. So it was not money. Money cannot be paid for knowledge. If anybody is asking money, he is belittling himself and belittling somebody else. That's why Mother spoke of that in the ashram school. Many people are probably aware, some are not aware. She said education was never sold in India. There is no money which is asked from any student. There is a very small fee, some 250 or something like that per year. Can you imagine? Then because some books or something are given. So she has maintained that highest. You can't pay money and get knowledge. Knowledge doesn't come by taking a course. So after, by a paid course, because you have to be a seeker. There is a process to it. It's not like you pay a course and learn something and then You have to, at the end of the Guru is not teaching based on what he will get. He gives. Then it is up to the disciple. Even Guru Dakshina was not compulsory. It became compulsory only because nowadays, people stopped giving, I don't know, but it was not compulsory. But it was mentioned in the scriptures. Strangely, it is mentioned even in Ayurveda. Ayurveda says, he who gets treated from a doctor and doesn't pay money, and he who doesn't pay Guru Dakshina to his master, he suffers. So, I used to just quote this, Yavat Kandagata Prana, that till you have your prana in your throat, you better finish the transaction. Otherwise, healers and teachers, it was so sacred, you are not supposed to ask money. So, anyways, now we are living in a different era altogether. So, there was no transaction. At the end, you could give the Dakshina if you want. And that was applying to anybody who gave you knowledge. So when he gives the knowledge, they get the knowledge, Sri Krishna and Balaram asked their Guru, Sandipni, that please tell us what we have to do for you, what we can do for you. He says, I don't know, I am besieged by the grief of my son who is no more. So, he said, okay, so we'll try to, he said, if you get him, I will be the happiest person in the world. Naturally, he has died. And so Sri Krishna and Balaram, they go, and he has gone into the ocean. So they enter the ocean. And for quite some time they are there. Now when they are there in the ocean, they enter into a cave of a Asura called Panchajanya. He is also known by the same name, Panchajanya. And see, these names are so interesting. You can crack the code just by the names. So Panchajanya and Panchajanya. So there he has hid the boy, it seems. His son has been hid there. That's what it seems. So they fight with the Asura and kill him. Then they get the Panchajanya, but he is not there. So they tear away the belly of the Asura. And he may be there, but he is not found there also. So they go to Yamapuri. And Yamaraj says, how can I just release him? He is with me. But I cannot release him, just like that. So they are ready to fight with Yamaraj. And then he realizes that who is he? And then he says, please take him back. So they bring back Sandipni Guru's son, and he is revived as per the story. Story is so clear and deeply symbolic, especially for someone like me who deals with psychiatry. And Mother has spoken about, Shovinda has spoken about, actually there are situations when a soul has left the body, but the body is not dead. And there is a classic example here of an individual called as Benjamin. So Benjamin had died, his soul had left, but it was hovering because it is still in some way vaguely connected with, attached to the bodily thing. So it would go to the room, it would go and check the furniture, everything is in place or not, but it had left the body. And Mother would tell people, so he started behaving in a very crazy way. And he was used to repair cycles, and Mother had to tell that, she would take time to tell the soul that, look here, now you don't need to, because one day he came and complained, they have disturbed my furniture. She said, look here, you are no more living here, you look for another body. Then after 1 year or 1.5 years, finally the soul went on a journey and he died physically. So there are occult truths which we don't understand. Shovinda speaks of it in Savitri, marked missing in the register of the souls. So they are beings who are moving a shell. They are dead from a deeper standpoint, but they are alive from the earthly standpoint. So now the story becomes very simple. Here is his son who has obviously died for all practical purposes. Why? Because Panchajanya, the 5 elements are all scattered. They are not held together. What is it that holds them together is the soul. That's why the departure, when people depart, these elements start going to their own worlds. Now what has happened, that while there is this Asura who has come and those elements, there is a possession obviously, and all these elements have been taken away, they are kept hidden in some cave, subconscious region, where something is there which has been kept in the subconscious region. Ocean, into the ocean are all symbol of that, sign of that. And Sri Krishna and Balaram rescue him from there. And his soul is, but rescuing, that's not enough, no, he has to, his soul is with Yamaraj, waiting for this fellow to die finally and his account to be sorted out. And of course, it's a very profound occult truth, and they go to Yama and bring it back, and he is revived, and Sandeep is very happy with the whole process. It takes some time. So the whole Panchajanya is the conch shell which he finds below. The conch shell belonged to the Asura who had hid their 5 elements inside it. It seemed so, but that's what the name of the Asura is Panchajan, and Panchajanya is the conch shell. And he comes with the soul of this boy who has died. Died means who has gone mad. It doesn't describe mad, it speaks of death, but obviously it's dead from every practical point of view. Otherwise, the Guru is not such a fool that he will say that, well, he has died many days back, but you bring back. Nor is cremation taken place. Nowhere it is described. He is there, but he is dead. So we can't, such an event would obviously go noticed. It's not like Sri Krishna and Balram doesn't know that he's got physically died or his body has been burned. So very clearly it's a symbolic story. And this is how we will see, like the bull on one leg. So there is no bull on one leg. It's clearly symbolic. And Vyasa's symbols are like that. They are sometimes too crude, you can't miss it. And so here is a boy who has died, but obviously his body is around. And he has not died yesterday or that day. He died some time back. So he brings back the soul which is now, that boy is like a shell, probably is some kind of modern psychiatry will say catatonic schizophrenia, where he is lying totally as if all the elements are gone with no power, nothing. And he brings back his soul, reconnects it with the body. It's of course an occult process. And then he lives again and he gets blessed. So this is the story of this soul called Panchajanya, which Sri Krishna brings back. So this one story which is described very beautifully, and then there is the other story which comes, and that is the story of called Myth of Brahma, is story of Brahma and Saraswati, one of them, and then comes the other story which is of the story of Sri Krishna and Satyabhama. They are going to defeat the demon called Narakasura. Now Narakasura is the modern name, but actually in the Purana it starts as Bhaumasura. He is the child of Prithvi, Bhumi. So you see, it's very fascinating. Now, right from beginning you know that what he is going to tell us. So who is Bhaumasura? The original name is Bhaumasura, but if you go to the Goa and all, they will all talk about Narakasura. Most of us have grown up knowing the story as Narakasura. So he is Bhaumasura. She is daughter of Bhumi, not just Prithvi, daughter of Bhumi, that's the material domain. So what he is doing is, he is stolen all the 16,100 women and kept them there. And then they cry, they aspire, they pray, and then Sri Krishna with Satyabhama go together to fight. Now, Satyabhama is daughter of earth. You see, the divine power which is concealed within earth. So Satyabhama and Krishna, they go together on their Garuda and they fight this Bhaumasura or Narakasura. That's the modern name. Is just before Deepavali, you have a festival dedicated to him. Naraka Chaturdashi, when people take a bath, special bath. So he fights. So when he fights, obviously he gives a tough job, but ultimately Sri Krishna slays him. And when he slays, all the 16,100 women are rescued and they marry Sri Krishna. Very, very clearly symbolic. One Sri Krishna is 16 kalas, and this 16 kala, each of this kala, all the energies, he has to bring it back. They have gone into creation. This, as the supreme being, he is of 16 kalas. That's what we read in the Bhagavat. That he is the being with 16 parts. Even in one of the Upanishads, Mandukya Upanishad is described as a great being with 16 parts. And each of these parts has its own energies, processes which are working. And he has to bring them back, restore them. Where have they gone? They have gone into the subconscious, Narakasura. Why they have gone? because human beings have distorted them. This is not there in the book, but this is how it goes in many stories. Because human beings have misused these powers and energies, they have gone into Narak. Narak means they are in that dark state, distorted state, because that's how we have done with nature. Everything that is given to man, thought, intelligence, feelings, everything. Because we have distorted, they have become indwellers of Narak. Narak is the dark hell which is below in the subconscious. Isn't it true? Actually, we see much of the energies are being used for purely selfish, egoistic, even sinful ends, what we may call as sin in the highest sense, for deviating away from the divine, and they are being used for all these dark, egoistic purposes. So all of them, their energies, you can't destroy them. Who is that fellow who is eating on them? That is Narakasura. He is sitting there and enjoying. He is saying, very good. That's what I want to. And he is the child of Bhumi, Brahmasura. So why is the child of Bhumi? So all that has happened, transpired till then, all the energies which have deviated from their course. We see this in mother's prayers. All the energies that had deviated from the course, and they go and they are submerged in the subconscious. They have to be rescued. It's part of the mission. And it is there in Mother and Children's Yoga. So much she speaks about rescuing the energies of the subconscious. It's there in the Vedic lore. The patal in which these things, forces have gone, and the famous story of Rishi Agastya who destroys these caves in which the asuras and the cows are hidden. See, the same story but in another way. In that story there are cows which are hidden, or they have been stolen, and they are stolen by these beings who are denizens inside the ocean depth. They are there hiding in caves. The same story in the Vedas is mentioned in a different way. And then the caves are broken open by the power of the word. The ocean is swallowed by Rishi Agastya, and then as they come out, Indra slays the Asura, rescues the cows. So same story is there. These energies which had deviated from their true purpose because of us humans, so they are stored somewhere. Now they are restored. So there is the restoration of these energies which have gone into the subconscious. And this means this story is so deeply moving actually. I always feel that every energy that is given to us, every time they are being distorted, we are actually giving it to Narakasura. Because this is what we are doing again and again in a never-ending cycle. So they have to be transformed, they have to be rescued. Of course, divine does it. That's what his job description is, if you like. But then he goes, rescues them. They all are wedded to him naturally. Whereas they would be wedded, they should be wedded to the Lord. And as someone said very beautifully, that I wish everybody was wedded to the Lord. But this 16,000 is very clearly, it includes everything. And there are sampradayas where you have, in Uddhav there is a sampradaya, I'm forgetting the name, where everybody is regarded as a woman and Krishna is the only Purusha. So behind this sampradaya, this is the meaning, that we are all living under all kinds of prakriti, besieged by prakriti. And this dark prakriti, when it weds itself to Krishna, it's redeemed of its darkness, and it once again is restored to its original form. So they are very beautiful story. As I said, Vyas is not a very, very good storyteller. His stories are too direct, and sometimes so direct in a way that it's easy to get the meaning. But they may seem little crude, like the bull with one leg. Elsewhere it will be described as a little more nice, sawy way. But then the advantage of these direct stories are they are easy to decode. So this is a story which is very easy to decode. And as he is coming back, Satyabhama now knows, now see the story goes very beautiful. Satyabhama is daughter of the earth. So now she is very happy that all these energies that had deviated are brought back. So they can be useful. Now the world can become a beautiful place. And as they are flying back on Garuda, she says, look here, Indra's garden, there is a tree, and that tree I want. So what is that tree? That is the tree Parijat. And it's the tree of aspiration. Mother speaks of it.
Tree of
aspiration. But it's called Parijat. So that's the tree which Satyabhama wants. So Indra said, no way. See, Indra doesn't want to give it because men will grow even as gods. Because that's got the power. It's not any other tree which is denying. He says, don't ask this tree. This is very special. You can take other things. But Shri Krishna says, no, Satyabhama wants it, I need it. So there is a fight. So first he fights the demon called Narakasura and slays him. Then he has to fight Indra, the gods. They won't allow. So ultimately, of course, Indra is humbled several times by Shri Krishna. One of them is here. And when he is humbled, he says, okay, fine, take this to earth. And this is the tree which will change the course of earthly destiny. You know, it reminds me of a line in Savitri. A branch of heaven transplant to human soil. And nature shall overleap her mortal step. So this is the branch of heaven which is transplanted to human soil. This is the tree of aspiration. You know, it grows at night. It flowers at night, blooms, and all the flowers drop at night. So it is the fire which keeps us alive till we reach the sun. So when he gets the tree and plants it, there is a little twist in the tale, not in the Bhagavat, but it's a beautiful, touching story. So as he brings down, now Rukmani says, actually, you know what? I want it in my garden. Who is Rukmani? Rukmani is Lakshmi, the consort of Krishna. And you see the chaos on earth. He is his divine consort. Yet on earthly life they are separated. He has to actually steal her. Now if you see this story from an outer moral point of view, you won't understand. But when you understand that she is the divine consort, she has to be with Krishna, there is no other place. And Krishna knows this and she intuitively feels it. She loves Krishna like anything and therefore that to come together. So she doesn't appreciate also. This is the last test. So she knows what this tree is. In the story it is said in a very different way. That she feels, oh, this is a lovely tree, it will be in Satyabhama's garden. She is feeling a little jealous. She said, I want it. So Shri Krishna talks to Satyabhama. He said, okay, you plant it here in your garden. But you plant it near the wall. It's a very beautiful story. So as the tree grows, it grows in Rukmani's garden. But its branches go to Satyabhama's place. Because it's separated by the wall. And all the flowers drop there and all the flowers give the fragrance in her home. So this story is so symbolic. It's not in the Bhagavad, but it's the aftermath of this whole event. That the Parijat tree of aspiration is planted on a soil which has been consecrated fully to the divine. So Lakshmi ji, it is the divine mother who alone can plant this fire of aspiration. She alone can light this fire. But as this fire of aspiration grows, its riches come to our earthly life, which is what Satyabhama is. She is the daughter of the earth. So its riches, tree which is planted in heaven, the most heavenly part in us, the heavenly psyche, that's how Srimad says. Out of the mystic given in man's heart, the heavenly psyche must put off her veil. So psyche in us is the heavenly part. So it's planted there, but its blooms go into the whole earth and all our earth nature begins to be filled and fulfilled by it. So this is the story of the third story of, beautiful story of this whole Purana. And then, of course, after all these stories, Maitreya narrates many of the beautiful things, as I said, the whole story of creation. Then he takes leave, and then there is a description of the avatars of the Lord. There are two ways of looking at these avatars. One is the story of avatars of the 10 avatars. That is also there. That comes later. But there is another avatars where they are known as the Leela avatars. So they are the Lord in his Leela. There are some 24 or 25 avatars described, and some will describe 18 avatars, but 25 is one of the standard symbols. So that those avatars are also described, which start now. The whole story starts with the Varaha avatar, which is the first avatar of either ways. Either if you take the 10 avatar standard or you take the 25 avatars. In between you will have the different avatars in the 25 list. But first avatar is the Varaha avatar, and he comes because earth has been drowned inside. So see, this story is of cyclic time. There is nothing like, now earth has been drowned, meaning thereby that it has existed, there is pralaya, it has been drowned back into the inconscient waters. So waters are the inconscient into which it has immersed, thanks to the human species. Imagine that. And so it has to be brought out. So Brahma is contemplating. What can I do about it? So something must be done about everybody is praying, wanting now, because they want to start the Leela again. So he has to solve the problem. And then out of the nostrils emerge the Varaha avatar. And Varaha avatar is described very powerfully, and he is very powerful being, and as he moves his legs and as he snorts with his nostril, all the gods are very happy and pleased that here is now our favorite earth will come back on spot. He is capable of doing it, and then he is doing only in the sky. Up till now the whole scene is only in the sky. So this is a story before present civilization has come into being. So it's happening in the skies, and finally Vara enters into the waters. And there is a demon. Again, past. Who is this demon? Demon is nothing else but, again, you have these two demons, the original demons, Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. So Hiranyaksha has held the earth inside, it's not letting it come out. He is the one who did the pralaya, and it has to be released. So he goes there, one or two slaps is enough to finish Hiranyaksha. It doesn't take long for Varaha to finish him. And then he emerges with the earth on his snot, on his nose, and everybody sings a praise and glory. After which the other avatar stories will come, the birth of Diti and Hiranyakashipu, all these stories will come subsequently. Right now, creation of humanity has not yet started. So these are stories which it uses the word praja, when it uses. So there are many beings who exist in the universe. So Prajapati Brahma, right now it's not yet humanity. Praja here refers to all the various beings who have come into creation already, and they are the ones who have to be first aligned, rescued. It's a big task. Human beings come much later. And that's why we see in Savitri a description where Sri Aurobindo says, man still a child in nature's mighty hands. So we are still a little, teeny weeny born. If you go by the whole clock of 1 year, BBC clock of 1 year, if you start from creation, starting point, 15 billion years ago, then man is born just 8 seconds before the clock strikes 12. We are little babies. So we don't know all that has happened. So why the Bhagavat is telling us all this? Because we must know our completeness and our true identity. Because otherwise we are moving like helpless children and at the mercy. It's very important to know our true identity, because without that we are, and what are the effects of this Kali Yuga, which I feel, there are many other effects. One of them is we have lost our own identity. So we have become children of Mr. So-and-so, Miss So-and-so, people take great pride in it. What does Shri Krishna say in the Gita? He says, Mame Vansh, you are a portion of me. I think if you remember that, that will be so wonderful. It will save us from so many troubles. So first thing is that we must realize our true identity. That's why this story, this description of the great being who is lying on the serpent of time, which is unfolding at his command. When his eyes open, there is creation. But interesting part, one more little detail. So where is creation before it has begun? That is also there in the Bhagavat. It says, he, the great being, Hari, looked inside him and he saw the whole creation within him. It doesn't vanish, it goes back into a primal state. We call it energy, you may call it whatever, the ultimate last bit. And that energy is absorbed back into the belly or the great being, and then it starts emerging again. So that's when the Rajogun comes. All the gunas go into a kind of balance, assimilated rest, and this is also withdrawn, the whole creation. But it is safe in the heart of the one, from whom it will spring up again, not in an endless same cycle, but each cycle is a step forward. If you go by the logic of the Purana, each cycle is a step forward in the evolutionary process. So this is supposed to be the seventh cycle, and with, as I said, when the Maitreya history begins, which is what we are living in, Maitreya means the sexual reproduction. Before that, the story of Brahmaji and Saraswati is when there is just Brahmaji multiplying, out of himself beings are emerging. That's how it is described. Devtas emerge, all the different lokas emerge. But the sexual reproduction, which is unique to earth, that does not take place. So that starts with this Srishti, where Brahmaji begins out of himself Manu and Shatrupa, and they are the first two gentlemen, much better than the myth of Adam and Eve. And why I say much better? Because in Adam and Eve, Eve comes out of the rib of Adam. Here, they both come out of Lord Brahma. He divides himself into two parts. One is Manu, the masculine, the other is Shatrupa, which is feminine. Many, many forms it can take. So she builds forms, and Manu has to go there, discover her, and he has to inhabit that form. So this is how the story goes of creation, and we shall read more of it by and by. Jai Ma.
Thank you so much. When go on listening, it genuinely feels like Hari Ananta, Hari Katha.
Yes, Hari Ananta.
Yes. Jai.
Jai.